Ding, ding, ding.
Well, that's how we're starting the episode. Welcome, teenies new and old, to Wits and Crits, a roundtable Q&A style podcast hosted by me, your Dice Goblin, and resident Vanilla Guard Boy Love and Ship Gremlin, Hayden Davio. I'm the player for Aviana Kolesh, Regan Alis, and Fianula Ione. For those of you who are finding us for the first time, hi, hello, we are Nat 19. We're a group of actors, performers, and improvisers. I forgot how to breathe, apparently.
You sounded like Link falling from a high place.
That's valid. That's a valid reading of that sound. But we are a group of actors, performers, and improvisers who've come together through our love of storytelling and mutual nerdery. Today on the show, I have Aaron Robert Parnell and Logan Laidlaw. Hello, my boys. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves in that order?
Oh, hi, I'm Aaron Parnell, and I go meow on the internet, and somehow people give me money for that. And when I'm not doing that, we're making silly videos on the YouTubes, or we're doing this. Hello.
Hello.
Hang, hang, hang.
That's what we have to say. Got it.
Hi,
Moving
I'm
on.
Logan Laidlaw. I'm a voice actor and TTRPG content author, the creative director of Nat 19 and Project Mouthwash, and also a little fun fact about me, for those around me, Aaron kind of knew it, I recently bought a Labradorite sphere. And though I'm disappointed by the lack of reflective blue surfaces in it, because I was hoping it would be much more like resplendent, it does allow me to ponder the orb, and that's important.
That is a thing everyone needs to do at least once in their life.
Ponder
That
the
is
orb.
such a you purchase.
A Labradorite sphere?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted it. I love Labradorite. It's so cool.
I know
it's
you
like,
do, and that's why I'm like,
it's-
that is the most Logan purchase.
It's like amylite. It's not just a gemstone. It's like a multifaceted, like fossil-like reflective surface, and that's the coolest kind of mineral. Unless it's a diamond mine.
We all know Logan is never prone to flights of fancy.
What?
The
Please
coolest.
ignore the 2 years you're like, I'm collecting mugs now.
Yeah. The coolest
Yeah.
type of gemstone is an unclaimed diamond mine.
Got your eyes on one, huh? So what do you, outside of Higgity Heckin' going meow on the internet, who do you play, Aaron? What do you do here at the Net
that
19?
kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Lots. I'm everywhere.
Elaborate.
Here I play Miriam, I play Manny, I play my magnum opus of characters, Blueberry, and all sorts of others in many of our other campaigns. Yeah.
You're also our Dr. Apocalypse. This is the energy of today.
You
This is
can't
what you're
prove that.
getting. You're our dungeon meowster for Princes of the Apocalypse.
That's never been definitively shown to be true.
Clippers somewhere on the internet. I know you're out there. Please use one of the intros from previous episodes where I've had Aaron on, where he has introduced himself as the DM for Princes. But, I'm not cool.
I've never seen Mr. Docalypse and Aaron in the same place. That is a fair
Well, that's because
statement.
you're looking for Mr. Docalypse, not Dr. Apocalypse.
Oh.
Yeah.
And Mr. Docalypse, the woodshop teacher.
I was under the impression Docalypse was his first name.
Oh, crazy.
I thought that his name was Dr. Docalypse Apocalypse. Say that! Say those
Esquire.
words! Say those words! You have no idea how fun that was to say!
Mr. Docalypse Apocalypse. Oh, yeah, that's really
Dr.
fun.
Docalypse. Dr. Docalypse Apocalypse.
Oh, if I named these episodes Fun Things, that would be the episode title. But that's not what we... No. I famously hate fun.
Mm-hmm. Famously.
Known thing here on Net 19.
Known thing, Hayden, stick in the mud.
Mm-hmm.
They're serious all the time and have their shit so together. But anyway, speaking of having your shit together, which I don't, I do have this document together.
Oh,
So
no.
that's one thing. So, I'm a roll...
Document.
So how this show works is the dice dictate what question I'm going to answer sometimes, and other times I go, you know what, that's more fun. So it's a D&D podcast. Sometimes the dice matter, sometimes they don't. I'm gonna roll the D4 to determine who I'm going to ask a question for. It will either be for Aaron, Logan, or for both of them. We have actually quite a few questions for both of y'all, which I'm very excited about. And then I have a sexy little D10 here that I will roll to determine which question. And you hear that? Those little dices? You can get those
D10 lying there. I can roll anything you want.
It's gonna roll all threes again because Logan's here and it's gonna pick that number.
It's true. I do cause these things.
I don't know why, but it's always the dice. It's always the gemstone dice that Jonah got me. That pick a number of the day and that's their number.
What kind of gemstone dice are they?
They are, I believe, are they aquamarine? No, whatever.
Nice.
I think they're aquamarine. I'm forgoring. I'd have to go to my DMs. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. How this show works is I'm gonna roll those dice and then we're gonna determine which question is which. And we're gonna go from there. So I'm gonna roll this sexy little D4. Oh yeah, I was gonna shamelessly plug our shop and then I got distracted by your sillies. So the dice I'm using are our Vestius gemstone dice, which you can get on nat19show.com/shop. And I'm rolling them into our Nat19 dice tray, which you can also get in the accessories section of our shop. But with that shameless plug out of the way, what?
Did you hear that our GM's address got leaked?
Oh.
It was in Dr. Docalypse Apocalypse's docs documentation.
Oh my fucking god.
You're just churning on that one for a bit.
So I feel like that's the episode, huh? Dr. Docalypse. Anyway, yeah. Okay, it's for both of you, so I'm gonna roll. Yeah. Okay. Actually, I can just roll a d4 for this one. Boop. All right, number 1. So for both of you, as DMs, when it comes to adding details about a player character's backstory that they weren't aware of, such as, turns out your girlfriend wasn't real, or turns out your teachers were grooming you to be a vessel, possibly, woo! What is the line of adding such details for you as DMs, aside from the obvious traumatic ones? I read that weird, so I'm gonna post that in the Wits and Crits chat.
Basically, what's the line you don't cross regarding the stuff that you're changing without telling the players?
Yeah, and what's like your approach to adding stuff for players?
So I do this a lot, because, you know, people often, when they give me knives to twist, it's usually like, hey, here's some blank stuff in my backstory, do it. Heckin', and also players commonly, I've noticed in my stories, opt to be like, my character has a big blind spot in their history that they don't even remember. You should do something with it. And I'm like, okay, fucking, regarding, so the methodology that I use to determine what happened during those times, I usually try my best to make it so that presuppositions the character's gonna live under aren't wrong in terms of how they live their life. Like, obviously would never be like, I came from a fishing city and I grew up catching the fishes. I would probably not be like, ha, fool, you don't remember that you actually were looking to render the fish extinct because you were an eco-terrorist who didn't like the overfishing in the area, because there's just some stuff's useless. But I don't know if I actually have any specific methodology in terms of going about it beyond being like good twists, in my opinion, in terms of like your past, are things that don't tell you you were wrong. They give you context that makes you reevaluate. They add sense to things, because I think most of the media I've grown up with kind of, I always like twists like that, where someone has an assumption that is functionally correct, but then they get information and they're like, oh shit, this more correct thing is
the
actually
information
the
isn't
thing.
wrong, their interpretation or understanding of it
Yeah,
is.
the framing of it changes. I think I usually try to go for twists that do that because they make people think about events. But beyond that, usually I'll only do it if there's a point, if I think it's something that's going to be actionable or come up at some point. there's been stuff that I've been like, this may never come up, like the stuff with Emma and Miriam. I was kind of sitting here being like, there is a strong chance that that is simply never going to come up, and I'm comfortable with that.
Mhm.
But when it comes to people like Raleigh, his gap in memory was an objective part of his character, so obviously I put a lot of detail into specific dates and like stuff that happened and laid clues down because that was the fun of it. But yeah, I don't think beyond that, I don't think there's any real extra thought that goes into it that's not just a case-by-case basis thing. But when it comes to lines I won't cross, I would never do something that violates a character or player's sense of security. I know they said except the traumatic ones, and I'm not going to name any specific ones, but I'm not going to be like, hey, you've actually been repressing some bad stuff, like with your father, that here, have this, you know? Because who wants that? Who's that going to help? Who's having fun with that? You know?
Yeah.
Unless if I did that, if the character didn't know, it'd be a case of the player will have had to have been like, hey, I want this to be part of my backstory. My character doesn't know, but I do. But I'm never gonna do that to somebody and be like, hey, did you know actually that this terrible traumatic thing happened that you as a player would not like? So, well, I'm trying to think, what else would I not do?
Yeah, it's about like finding those kind of ranges of comfort, because even in Nat 19 we have vast, like, different thresholds for what a different player might consider too much versus another.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the time, you have to kind of tailor that experience to who you're playing with, because some people are like, yo, give me the trauma, let's go. And other people might either feel invalidated, they might feel like they built their character wrong or something and panic, or they'll just be extremely upset, and not in the fun D&D upset way, and they're just genuinely upset kind of way. And the goal is always fun. Like, my methodology, much of what Logan said is basically true to my experience when I'm creating stuff that's inside a line of a character not knowing stuff. And almost always, it's usually the player that starts with, hey, I want to not know some stuff. I'm like, that's easy enough for me. Being able to be like, surprise is great. And if they want everything to be a surprise, that's fun too. Discovering something like that can be a really, really interesting way to tackle a character, because you get this fun bit where you have to reconcile how your character is versus the past that they've clearly had that they discover.
Yep.
And that can make for good narrative dissonance.
We have a very prominent case of that happening in DMS right now. I think it's a really good example. And like the talks I've had, I guess spoilers, the talks I've had with Eric over the past couple weeks, where I've been like, so how do you want to proceed? Do you want to like proceed with the idea that like, what name are you going to go by? I was like, are you going to go by Briar? Are you going to go by Gino? Please don't go by Grier. Just personal ask. Please don't make that a real thing. It's funny, but don't do it. And he was like, I think I'm still gonna go by Gino. And he explained to me that his thoughts were that, like, yes, he was Briar, but his understanding of himself is that the person who was Briar might as well have been a different person, because his experiences and memories are so different now. So he's going to proceed with this idea that, like, he is a separate entity from the person that he was pre-memory loss. And I was like, that's cool. He could have steered into it, and I would have told him all the stuff he needs to know, but I kind of figured he'd be like, and I'm happy he's going down the route of like, no, it's this journey of self-discovery. The past is context for the present. The past is not the outline for the present.
Descriptive, not prescriptive.
Yeah. And yeah, I admittedly, and I'm talking a lot on this point, I apologize. Admittedly, I do lean into, hey, did you consider that your character thought the wrong way about this thing in the past a lot? Usually I try to avoid wrong, and I try to be like, you didn't have this information, now you do. And admittedly, I lean into that a lot, but I think I lean into that a lot because I think that challenging players playing their characters to like sort through how they feel about their past often connects them more strongly to their characters.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think it's
No, I love
so
that
like
shit.
I always find after those events drop, I see a pretty marked change in how players are playing their characters and like how they feel about things, and I'm like, that's what I want. I want these paradigm shifts to come about as like you realize that your character feels a way about this event that separates the character from the player a bit, um, because it evokes an opinion from the character as opposed to the player, which is where I think good characterization comes from for D&D players. Also, I mean, D&D is kind of like all about struggling with your past. Everyone always starts with, my village is burned down, my parents are dead, there was a prophecy that I would destroy the third moon. Fucking, like, I think that having those elements be in the game, and also letting my players know that I'm the sort of DM where you might need to be uncertain about exactly what happened and think about it, I think is good for characters, because it's just a thing that we do in D&D all the time.
I love, as a player who's played under both of you, which I gush all the time, but I'm like, I love playing under each of you, and I feel very, very grateful to have those experiences. They're so fun. But as a player, I really love when I have to like really think about it and be like, fuck, how does my character feel about that? And like, I love having just those, you're like in it as a character when you have like a reaction. You're like, whoa, okay, where the fuck did that come from? I guess they feel a way, damn. I love it. You're saying it's like everyone has a tragic backstory. I was talking to someone recently. I was like, I have one character, who has their entire family alive and is pretty like good across the board, and it's Regan. She is the only one where I was like, no, that was my challenge to myself with her. I was like, she doesn't need a tragic backstory. I don't want to do that this time, because I always fucking do. And I love that it became a lot more of like interpersonal kind of drama, and like how like family politics kind of work. And I was like, that's another neat thing to explore as a player. And but I super agree with how both of you approach I guess filling in the gaps is a good way to put it. Filling in the gaps in a player's character, like in a player's backstory, and like adding elements and adding those like points of mystery and adding those threads for them to pull on. I think both of you do it very, very well.
We joke about it a lot, but there's occasionally you'll see people in the sphere of tabletop RPGs talk about like why characters aren't behaving more objectively with the information that we have as players. It's really easy to do that. But most character building is about a character's subjectivities. And so it's just about playing with those and finding how they view the world. And then occasionally in cases like this, you just twist it a little bit.
Yep. Mm-hmm. There's a quote I saw recently, and it's kind of related to exactly what you just said, and I won't linger on it too much because it's sort of a digression, but I saw somebody, I think they were commenting on something that happened in Invincible recently, and I won't talk about what it was because it doesn't matter, but they were like, why didn't the character do this? Like, fucking, is this written super bad? And I saw somebody respond to that being like, it's important to remember that engaging in media is not a logic contest between you and the author. Like, not everything makes sense, nor should everything make sense. And so, like, things would be boring if everyone objectively always did the right thing, or used all the information on hand, or didn't forget things, or didn't have moments of rage or sadness. And
want to be robots at that point.
Yeah. And it was a great quote. I was like, yeah, engaging in media is not a competition of cohesiveness between you and the author. And that's important to remember, also in D&D.
Yeah. And sometimes feelings are irrational, and that sometimes that's how it be.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh, good answers, both y'all. Preach very much. All right, I'm gonna roll this d4. Help y'all.
Apologies if you hear me keep opening and closing my giant water bottle.
That's fair. All right, it's for Eowyn.
Meow.
Meow. Meow. All right, it's number 4. And then I touch the die and it's like 6. I'm like, no, it's 4 now. All right, so it's for Miriam. You said once if Miriam found out that Raleigh was responsible for his father's death, Miriam would kill him despite his possession. Has that changed now that he knows he was also under Velus's control for a long period of time?
Yeah, he was probably lying the first time, too.
Speaking
Elaborate.
of things that are not born out of pure logic.
Yeah, that was an emotional place because Miriam bears a lot of responsibility for things that sometimes aren't his fault, including his father's death. Yeah, he carries a lot of weight that he might not necessarily need to. Yeah, he said that because, I don't know, Raleigh was sometimes a ween and he felt like telling him he was going to stab him in the eye. Truth is, he didn't know what to do. So he's like, oh, I'm going to do something about it. And it felt like a thing to do. But with the context Miriam has now, which is a vastly greater amount of context, no, there's no way he could do that to someone like Raleigh.
Mm-hmm.
They're a victim just as much as anyone else right now.
Man, I'm so excited for all that stuff to come to a head. In 10,000 years.
10 billion years.
10,000 years.
I'm impatient and, I want it now.
I estimate each of the interim games is probably going to take 6 months, which means they're probably going to take like 9 months. So,
Yeah.
heckin' enjoy the Somnus Domina mid content while we're in the background. Heckin'. But I'm also really excited to get back to that stuff a whole bunch.
I'm really
Yeah.
pumped to watch the interim games.
Oh, totally
Yeah.
get that.
I'm really excited. Heck yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess, yeah, the long and short of that is Miriam lies about a lot. Like, he's not necessarily maliciously duplicitous or anything, but he actively talking about untrue things quite frequently.
Yeah. Again, thank you. Appreciate. Roll again, hope y'all. Dice, I'm gonna make this fair. There you go, buddy. I'm like, I try to urge Logan. It was like, Aaron. I'm like, listen, we all enjoy a Parnell here, but you have to be fair, Vestius Dice. I realize that story, you plus Aaron with the Vestius thing, I get it. Get your shit together. Anyway, for Logan. Woo! Okay. What's this one?
You ready, Orb? We're gonna get asked a question.
You ready? So, for Logan and Anne, you once described Velus to Flux as if you were looking through a thermal lens you would only be able to see what was behind them. Is that because of what Velus is, or what Velus has achieved to get to this level of obscurity?
It's what he is. He can't help it. Velus couldn't turn that off if he wanted to, nor does he have any say in it. He doesn't exist for all intents and purposes. Oh my god, I'm sitting here being like, I don't remember exactly how much I gave away beyond what I had other characters say about him, but he is basically an entity who does not exist and has nothing that you could describe as self, which is why he can so seamlessly integrate into other people and why he is only useful if he is acting through others. He is basically a non-entity. He has like a visible form. He can shapeshift, obviously. We saw that with like what he did with Logan. He can take others' identities. He is incredibly proficient at copying the mannerisms of people he's only seen very briefly. And it's not like a skill he's built, it's just a thing that he does. He basically can look at a person and fully understand what it means to be them and then assume that role because there is no him to get in the way. But yeah, if you were to try to detect him, there's nothing there to detect. As much as this is all like a contradictory thing and it's a very like Type Moon Noble Phantasm explanation to a thing, there is no Velus in the world. There is a phenomenon that wanders around possessing people and manipulating people that has been called Velus Izetsu, but there's no actual Velus. He might as well just be a natural event that's running around manipulating things.
That's so interesting.
And to what end?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, I feel like by the time we get back to Vestige, I'm gonna have a fucking, like, red string board just in my office of, okay, guys, so I've been thinking for the past 2 years.
And you know what's really funny to think about? He kind of would have been dealt with, technically, if the players didn't get involved.
We never saved Raleigh.
Yeah, he was stuck in the mirror. It was a total technicality. The Crystal Queen got really mad at Raleigh as Raleigh was leaving, and she was like, well, I'm a fucking soul-stealing curse, kaboom. And it sucked out the thing that was acting as Raleigh, so like the upper layer of personality in Raleigh. It sucked out Velis. Velis got thrown into the mirror. It wouldn't have actually threatened Velis. Velis was like, I mean, I don't have a soul. You can't degrade me. But it was irritating him, so the moment there was something else in the mirror for him to hide in, he was like, I'm gonna hide in you. You fucking, basically, it was like, this mirror's making me itchy. I don't want to be itchy. I'm gonna possess this young girl's soul and go inside it so that she can be itchy for me. And he would have, like, Mary Mist, the dragon, what have you aside, he would have probably remained in that mirror, because as powerful and smart as he is, he also has some incredible limitations. Like, he is almost wholly incapable of taking action on anything. So, like, he would have just kind of stayed in the mirror until something got him out. But then the party happened. Which I'm sure would have happened eventually, because story. But, like, heckin', you know, and eventually Mary Mist's soul would have degraded in the mirror, and it would have just been Velis, and then Satsuma probably would have been like, alright, let's have a talk. I'm gonna use you. And then he probably would have tried to manipulate her, and she probably would have tried to manipulate him, and heckin', for reasons, he couldn't possess her body at the time. I mean, he didn't try, but I will note that he would not have been able to. So it would have probably, that the dynamic would have eventually been that Velis would have been pretending to be an agent of Satsumaru.
Yeah,
but then,
like,
then the highest standard was like, let's save this girl. Woo!
If Velis could have a grip on, like, effectively a demigod.
Yep. But there are things that he has trouble possessing / can't possess. And I guess I'll give the hint out there that anything that idolmantic radiation gets tangled up in, he has trouble interacting with.
Yeah.
Which, you know,
gathered that
Quintus stuff.
Because Quintus the battery Valor built.
Yeah, it's not that he couldn't outright, but he hasn't figured out how. Because he hasn't had enough time to, like, he's had lots of mortals around. He hasn't had a lot of time historically around demigods and, like, idolmantic beings and whatnot, so he's just unfamiliar with how to do it all the way with them, so he's figuring it out.
Couple extra puzzle pieces.
Yeah. Because he doesn't just inhabit the body. He possesses the soul.
Yeah.
He goes into the soul of a person, which is why in the mirror, where it was just, you know, heckin' ethereal soulish versions of people, he hid inside Mary Mist's very soul.
I hate that.
Yep.
Yep. That makes
He's
me...
the ultimate doppelganger.
Yeah. That makes me hate the epilogue even more. Like, it was great. I didn't hate it. Like, I'm like, I should rephrase. I fucking loved it. I was thriving. Had a amazing time. But it's like, oh, yeah, no,
Also, I hate.
But girl was feeling violated before. Even worse now.
Also,
anyway.
want to just point out, because it was heckin' a petty detail I did at the time that no one would ever catch on to until years later. But that's why whenever Raleigh got stuck in there and tried to interact with Mary Mist, their reaction was to just super immaturely be like, conjure snowballs and pelt Raleigh with them. Because it was very much Velis being like, you! Fuck, if I wasn't in you, I wouldn't be in here! Bah! Fucking, he was just picking on Raleigh because he was mad at him.
It's one of those words like, you possessed me, motherfucker!
Yeah, that's why Mary Mist was so immediately standoffish to them, despite not being that way to anybody else.
That's incredible. Oh, so good. Thank you. I appreciate how thoughtful y'all are with your answers. What?
No, I was just remembering the snowballs.
All right, it's for Erin. Because the dice has
Meow.
learned its fucking lesson. Anyway. Alright. Okay, I'm excited to ask this one. For Miriam. Considering that he was once a handsome tiefling and is now a handsome human, how do you think his family is likely to react to the change? Is he at all worried that his being human might be preferred by those in his hometown or even by his family?
You do. No, you do the joke. You do the joke we were both about to do.
I was just like, Hattislin.
I copy pasted. I didn't check for orbits. Okay.
I know you know.
Actually,
I mean,
called Hattislin in Somnus
I'm gonna
Domina.
kick you.
pushes his glasses up.
Dude, I did it while I was saying it. I did it with my middle finger. Because that's how you do.
And for the people of the Mithril Dive in general, they will prefer Miriam as a human over Addison. That's just true. That's not a question in Miriam's mind at all. Part of why he left is that he did not exactly have the best quality of life and friendship living in the dive. But as for his family, less consequential about whether or not they prefer him as a human. He assumes they probably would, like, especially with the general context that they probably don't remember very well, if at all, that some of them are responsible for him being a Hattislin in the first place, or at least partially. They would simply be elated that whatever, fiendish curse was placed on their kid or brother has been removed. The bigger fear is, would they recognize him? Because, like, outside of his hair, like, he doesn't really look like the person they would have known for 25, nearly 26 years. And that would be a weird kind of back of the head feeling. But, he's extra enough that he could just make a big scene out of it, and they'd be like, oh, yeah, it's him.
I think, you go ahead.
Oh, by all means.
I was gonna say, I think the easiest way to look at that situation and be like, would they prefer him as one or the other? Everything that they would have liked about Miriam is Miriam, not the fact that he was a Hattislin. Him not being a Hattislin, and this is just me proposing this, I haven't made any super clear thoughts on exactly how it'll go. It's not like they're going to see him and be like, oh no, but you being a Hattislin was such a good thing for you in the family. Like, him being a human, it's not like Miriam is lost as a person, but the social stigma, as much as it's gross to think of it this way, the social stigma's gone. So it is kind of objectively just a good thing.
Yeah, as far as they'd be concerned. Miriam assumes across the board they're all going to be happy about it. Like, it was a thing that the family kind of had to deal with. Like, it's notes about how, like, yeah, they were obviously still family, and they treated Miriam well because, they loved him. But they definitely struggled with the fact that because he's there, other people assumes that family has to have some sort of connection to a fiendish lineage or a curse or something. And so it's not only Miriam that would face that stigma, the whole family that would, because he's there, which is a big reason why he left. Because taking himself out of the equation was the easiest way to make life easier for the rest of the people around him.
Vamp for like 30 seconds. I have to run away for just a second.
Okay. So yeah, I think most of them wouldn't have massive reactions. They'd be like, great, and probably get some hugs. They'd be like happy. His mom would be really, really nice about it. His dad would probably have the biggest like shoulder relax moment, but he's dead. So yeah, it's just the rest of them. The siblings, most of them aren't in the dive. I guess no, that's not true. I think 3 of them are in the dive. I think
How many siblings does he have?
I know 2 still live with his mom. I think 1 is in politics, and another one's on a boat now. But yeah, I think it's 4 siblings, if I remember correct. I haven't looked at the sheet in a while, but that sounds right to me.
Got a big family. Heck, I'd have thought, and then it escaped, and I'm mad about it. But yeah, I think... Oh yeah, that's what it was. It's interesting because he, we're gonna be going to the dive. it's inevitable.
Yep,
We have
that's
to
where
go.
well, Raleigh's going back to those mines, like to the specifically the collapsed ones. So we're going directly there. Basically, we have to go there. We've got to go to what the fire peaks, I think they're called.
We have to go
Obviously to the
where-
Veering Grove.
Yeah, we have to go to the Veering Grove. We have to go find Lexi's manor. Because that's a whole thing, and we don't have that key anymore, so let's go break into your house, Lexi. Let's fucking go. But it's interesting because he's no longer a Hattislin, but he's bringing the troop of weirdos that is the highest standard, one of which is impossible to disguise. Hello, big wings, hard to hide, can't hide. Hello, bringing a demon in here. So I just think it's gonna be an interesting experience across the board, I think, because it's while he has changed, the group as a whole, from what I understand, might not be the most welcome, being as we are, as I put it, the band of weirdos that we are.
In general, yeah, like obviously the biggest hurdles for people are going to be like Aviana will face some stuff. Vogan very visually is striking. It's impossible to really get around that. That said, Miriam's fully willing and capable to do a like heckin' Aladdin style Prince Ali with Quintus at the helm, because Quintus has been his social shield forever. And if people really want to, like always, if people have wanted to fuck with Miriam after he became besties with Quinn, it became okay, you want to fuck with the Hattislin, you got to get through that noble good luck. Especially when we were in the land away, like to try and fuck with the Valor build, like. Obviously, other big players in the country could, but your average person just wouldn't have the stones to tell Quintus Valorable to piss off. They need to throw rocks at that Hattislin.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen. Very, very useful for someone like Miriam who normally wouldn't be welcome in places like, I guess the most we ever saw that was like the jewelry shop, where they absolutely would have rathered he just not be there.
It's
So
true.
many- Yeah.
I'm excited for Grey Rock in general.
Me freaking too. I'm super hyped about that.
Okay, it's for both of ya.
I'm both of you.
Okay. Oh, I like this question. As players, what is something that you like about the I can't read. I need to go back to preschool apparently. Goodness gracious, Bingus
Go back and
Bongus.
take reading classes.
Yep. As players, what is something you like about the way the other DMs?
I like the fact that given that we're playing a module, I enjoy that we have a pretty strong latitude to leave the module and go do other stuff. It's kind of an intricate web of storytelling where I'm like, however, I am aware that we are not making progress on the central plotline. However, I love Death Catla. I love being on a boat.
The boat was so fun.
I very much enjoyed that it's been a bit of a training ground for content because Aaron's adopted mostly does this not break the universe? Cool, do whatever you want approach to including mechanics and classes and whatnot, which has been great for people testing stuff. So yeah, I enjoy that we can get out of the module more than maybe we have been able to in some previous campaigns. Because, like, the Tomb of Annihilation was definitely, kind of just strictly the Tomb of Annihilation. Strahd, one wouldn't expect us to be able to do anything outside of Strahd in Strahd. Like, it's not like we could be like, let's go to Waterdeep, because, that's the problem, is we can't go to Waterdeep.
Yeah, unless we knew about like the tokens and stuff back then, and you want to go to a different plane of dread if you find one. That's about it.
But I very much enjoyed being able to go to other places and do other stuff, and briefly have side adventures that aren't just the cults, that aren't just running down the list of, okay, we got the prophets, okay, we got the weapons, okay, we got the nodes, which is, kind of our current understanding of the plot progression. So that's my favorite thing right now.
Yeah, I definitely always wanted, especially like something as open as Prince's. It seems weird, like obviously there's stakes tied to the cult, but it does seem weird that if the party just didn't care at a point, or they had reason to go somewhere else, like they can. stopping them. It's not like the cult's taken years and years and years and years, and so while obviously they're up to something and things are happening, it also stands to reason that they're not exactly on the precipice of, you're gonna turn around and suddenly heckin' Tiamat's gonna blow out of a mountain, unless it seemed awesome, in which case that would happen. But outside of that, it's a thing. Like the campaign, it works on narrative time, and sometimes that means if the party wants to go and, I don't know, punch a troll in a dungeon, who cares? Yes, let's do it.
Before you answer your side of the question,
Mhm.
I just want to let you guys know it's unrelated. I just got an email.
Mm-hmm.
Google Ads support for YouTube for Project Mouthwash. It is an email from someone, we're not going to talk to them, claiming that if we join with them, they can maximize our ad revenue and whatnot. But the important thing in this is that the woman that is sending the email is named Diane, and they spell it with 2 N's. And I have never seen that on a real person ever in my life.
That's so excellent.
They exist! She's out there!
She's out there. She's doing things. Somebody stop her. That's incredible. But heck yeah.
If I would answer, I got joke answer, the real answer. Joke answer is I love Logan's ability and propensity to accidentally recreate the plots of popular franchises and anime entirely by accident, because it's almost always one he's never seen. I think that's phenomenally great. That said, moving that kind of into the real answer, it's because Logan has a really good sense of story, and it's almost always good stories that Logan's bringing into the campaigns he makes. And because of that, there's usually, an insane / dorky amount of world building, depending on how much you want to bully Logan, put into all of them. Like Somna Stamina especially, because you've been brainchilding this since, before we met, which is over 10 years ago now.
Holy
shit. And so there's obviously a ton of meat there, but even in like the fake campaign and stuff like that, you had like notes on notes on notes. You had months and months and months of prep before even beginning to account for the players. And so there's just so much to really chew on, and so you do a really, really good job of hooking people into a world that does feel tangible and meaningful, which is a thing that is really hard to do, even if you're experienced as a DM.
I am so sad that we never got to go to the digital world, and we're probably not going to meaningfully return to Digimon, at least for a long time.
Yeah.
Because I put so much effort into the digital world and how it works and the layers of it, and I have like notes on the layers and the physics. I
remember you telling me a lot about it after I exited that campaign. And I was freely available to hear all the spoilies. You're like, look at all the stuff. You showed me like a map of the layers, and I was like, oh,
it's never gonna get used. And I think I came up with a really cool version of the digital world and how it works, and the AOA and the fucking upper layers. And I'm just sitting here being like, oh. And it's not like I can reuse that. Like, it's the digital world. What am I ever gonna do that I'm gonna be able to be like, fucking, oh yeah, this'll slot right in. Heckin'.
I don't know what you're talking about. That sounds like Vestige Campaign 3 to me, baby.
Actually, hilariously, the way that it worked in terms of its layers is very similar to how the layers of hell work in Somna Stamina.
The layers of hell.
Think about it.
You were saying layers, I'm like, just repurpose it to the hells somehow.
The way that you move through them and like they scale into each other and whatnot, admittedly, I guess is very similar. So I guess the hells are my recycling of the digital
I think Mount Celestia, I don't know if it's the same in Somnus Domina, but I know in traditional 5e, so I think Celestia also operates in a layered system as well.
Yeah, though it's a bit more like abstract for that one.
Yeah, because it's all touching, but somehow also layered, and moving between them is confusing and strange.
Yep.
Yeah.
Who knows? We'll get there someday. But the digital world, huge, just in terms of notes upon notes upon notes upon notes. Man! So much waste.
See what I mean?
Yep. It's impressively dorky, and I love it.
Logan is like, the kind of thing where they have the amount of notes that invariably, if they were tangibly in front of them, they could do that thing that Matt got to do where someone like royally fucked a thing that he expected to happen, and you got to see him just pick up a piece of paper and just slowly rip it in half, throw it over his shoulder. He's like, well, that's not
I seem to
happening.
remember a case where he picked up like a pile of papers and moved them and just dropped them into the garbage beside him.
Yep.
I love it.
I presume he like retrieved them later because they're probably actually useful, but it was a really funny thing to do. I would. Honestly, my style of like note taking and world building kind of only really it works better in VTTs because having reference documents as opposed to reference papers is better because I can hotlink things. If I had a book, which you
had to flip
fucking
through,
Lyra's Guide to Rediak and the companion book Lyra's Guide to Risk and Reward coming out sometime this year. If I had that book just on hand, my god, I'd be flipping through pages so much all the time. It would be terrible. But buy it because it'll be useful for you.
It just means you're gonna have those little like sticky thumb like page holders that you have all over your books already.
Yep.
All over it.
Those are my favorite thing to buy. Putting
sticky tabs.
Putting sticky tabs in my notebooks is like therapeutic for me. I love doing it. I'm like, ooh, this is where this happened. Okay, keep note of this. I still have shit from like, I think my first session with y'all that is sticky tabbed to shit. And I'm like, oh, this stuff is this is coming up now. Oh shit. Glad I wrote that thing I thought was random down. Note take everything. It's great.
No, take everything.
It also helps me keep engaged.
Yeah, ironically, you would think that I'd be at the table more of a note taker, but I'm really not.
Yeah, that honestly genuinely surprises me.
Yeah, I'm very about like remembering things because when it comes to other stuff, I have a pretty encyclopedic memory. But like, I think there's a line to be crossed where if I'm writing something down, I write a lot, and that doesn't help at the table because to be a note taker, you kind of have to be able to short form stuff.
Yeah.
So I think I just don't. Otherwise, I'd be spending like all my time writing pages upon pages, and I like being present for what's going on.
You also get really in character, and the characters you've played, at least consistently in my games, have always been very like ginky guys and gals who are really like, let's go get it. And so they don't really want to sit and dwell on certain things too much. To the point, like Audrey says, like, I don't know what this is from. They're like, you know, that evil rock. They're like, what? Evil?
That's not one of my favorites.
So good.
Yeah.
Gridler, if you're listening, buddy, we appreciate it.
Much love.
Like, we're funny. In my opinion, Gridler makes us even funnier.
It's true. I agree.
It's so like I can't imagine Ajusai or Bax, for the two, I guess, biggest examples, having exactly encyclopedic memories of certain things unless it pertains directly to them. And at those points, it's really easy for someone like you to remember because it's story focused. You're like, no, I know why I'm dealing with that.
Yep.
Yeah,
I try to replicate the attention span of my characters when I can. I think I do a pretty good job.
Again, it's about subjectivities. It's why I like kind of tuning out when I'm not present as Miriam or something, because A, it allows me to bully players who don't want to tell me something again in character because they aren't either paying full attention or they struggle with memory. I'm like, no, remember, or tell me wrong. I would love it if you told me wrong, because I'll run with being wrong now. That sounds fun. But it also allows me to come in without full knowledge, because you want to be present still. I don't want to like actually clock out, but I will like take a headphone off or something and just vibe, look at my sheet, try and update some notes about my character or something. And then once I hear it's kind of winding down, I can pull myself back in. And that way, I don't have, I have to worry less, I guess, about Aaron getting in the way of Miriam.
Hell yeah.
D.
Well, thank you, my boys. B. Pretty sure. Yeah. Okay. That was cocked. Yeah. Okay. It really wants to ask both y'all questions, and I'm fine with that. Boop. Okie dokie. For both of you, do you think your styles of DMing have rubbed off on each other in any way?
I don't know.
Yeah, I couldn't say.
Cool. Thanks, y'all.
Aspirationally, maybe, but I don't know if I've exactly shifted at all.
I'm trying to think, because, like, I don't know, things change suddenly. I wish I could say I paid a lot of attention to what influences I, like, meaningfully, intentionally incorporate into my stuff, but,
Sponge.
yeah.
Yeah.
I tend to steal things without even realizing where I'm stealing them from.
Sometimes you don't even know the thing.
Sorry
Yeah.
for monologue. I'm sure probably. I've got a bad memory for, like, micro things like that, so there's, like, probably a lot of minor interactions that...
That's fair.
A big thing about that, though, is what we've GM'd allows us to take from each other, because a big problem is I run non-module games and Aaron's run module games. So, like, a lot of the practices we use are kind of a little bit incompatible in terms of story direction and whatnot, because we have to interpret different contexts and materials. So I think it's hard to really... our starting points are so different that it's hard to really quantify.
Objectively quantify, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know.
That makes sense.
I would think so. I would think so, though.
Like, maybe just through, like, osmosis and, like, shit that you're like, I started doing this thing, don't know where I picked it up, but it's something that I do. I've noticed that, like, a lot.
We talk casually about GMing a lot, so I'm sure that those conversations affect things both ways, but it's probably in ways we don't notice.
Yeah. We just started doing it, and we're like, it happened.
Yeah.
Makes sense, makes sense.
All right, I'm gonna roll again. Hope y'all.
He's for Eowyn.
Wow.
Wow.
He's your favorite, isn't
Yeah.
he?
The Vestius dice are really like, hey, buddy.
Number 6.
Which one was that?
No, it's the one after 5.
Oh, shit. You're right. I just need to go back to school, apparently.
It's somewhere
Fuck.
before 8, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, God, you're right. You're right.
Okay.
With everything that Miriam has been through, it's clear to see that sexual gratification and romantic advances have taken a back seat to an extent. Not entirely, but to an extent. What do you think Miriam needs in order to really heal? Or at least begin his healing journey?
Security. A big thing that Miriam's always deflected off of when people talk about, like, actual meaningful relationships or even romantic trysts is usually like, okay, but anyone who tries to fuck me is going to die. So he's just like, I don't want that for them, because usually I'm only going to try and sleep with people I like, so yeah, I guess I won't, because I don't want everyone to die. And he's gotten better about that already. In general, he kind of placed a lot of onus on himself, dutifully or silly, depending on your perspective, about whether or not people being around him or taking from, like, giving away the armor to Lexi was a big thing, where he's like, I need to not blame myself for giving them this good thing that is better in their hands, because it would put them in danger, because we're already always in danger. And so trusting people and letting them make their own decisions about whether or not they're getting in danger was a big chunk of Honokuni for him, was getting over the fact that, no, this isn't all his fault. It's parts of it are his responsibility, absolutely, but he got to a point where he's like, I'm not gonna blame myself for literally every single thing. But Mary needs to heal. Gosh, I wish I knew. He's much like Diane. He can relate to that. He keeps going or he dies, and so he's just gonna keep going. And eventually, he'll either kill everyone who wants to kill him, or he'll die. And that's the plan for now.
You mentioned stability, and that immediately piqued my ear. What would stability kind of look like for Miriam? Is that just like having like a life that is stable, a relationship that's stable? Like what do you really mean like with stability for him?
Originally I think I meant safety, and that, like, obviously not being in danger all the time would be really, really helpful for him. So not adventuring, like he couldn't really do what he does. He would have to stop. But that's his current greatest fear, is stopping. Outside of that, that's basically it. That's his one big need in life, is to not be constantly in danger. He has a lot of emotional problems and stuff he has to work through, but he can't even begin to start touching those until he doesn't feel like he's going to wake up with a dagger to his neck. We're still in a place where he, at any single point, believes that Satsuma is just going to apparate and be like fucking Getsuga Tensho, and that's it. and
Yeah.
and that's terrifying. Like, to really try and sit in that for a bit, I'm like, no, that would be like, you just wouldn't sleep well. You'd probably change your sleep schedule a bit, because it's like, okay, well, nighttime is when they're probably going to show up. But thanks to things we learned, it could be whenever, because they don't care about the sun. So they could just show up and just kill all sorts of people. Him not included. Hell, other people dying would be worse for him. It'd be terrible.
Vampire asterisk.
Yeah.
Yep.
Stupid bug vampires.
Creepy crawly
Admittedly,
looking
and I know
ass.
it's kind of a contradiction about them in game, but admittedly, it's one of those things where I'm like, they would probably call themselves something else, but they're close enough to vampires that it's easy to be like, they do most of what vampires
The
do.
core of a vampire is there.
Yeah.
It's the like extremities are where it starts to
But
change.
in another world, one might have just come up for a totally different term, but calling them vampires delivers most of the needed information, so it works.
Mhm.
But vampire asterisk.
Yep. Vampire adjacent.
Vampirant.
Well, that's what we're trying to do. So we're trying to, do for Taguch.
It's true.
Yeah.
Vampirant.
Vampirant. Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate your thoughtful answer.
Mwah.
Okay, for Logan.
Oh, I get a question.
You do? Okay, this one's fun. With Mr. Machiavelli in plain sight, from Velis being Merry Mist to Ian secretly being the moon. Asterisk on that. I don't go to fate yet. We'll see. To Ian secretly being the moon this entire time, a pattern has formed where major plot-related things are hidden in plain sight. Is this because no one will question it, or is it a ploy to get the players to delve deeper into the Laidlaw?
I don't understand Ian secretly being the moon.
I don't know either.
Because he wasn't secretly the moon. He chose to go into the moon at the end, but he wasn't secretly the moon the whole time. The moon wasn't the friends we made along the way.
Everything suddenly has always been the moon, and by everything
Guys.
I mean specifically them.
Did you know we have 2 moons?
In terms of it being, I like to string things along and to put stuff. Again, it's kind of like how earlier I mentioned I like that when I put stuff into people's past, I like it when thinking about it causes them to reframe information. They weren't wrong. They just have to think about it and be like, oh, it's this, but this way. I do think my DMing style is to drop information from people or sources that either cannot give the full context or have their own understanding of it, and then wait for the players to find their own issues with that logic and come to conclusions, because I like it when people figure things out. I like giving people things to think about. And sometimes the players think they figure things out and they haven't, but I let them think that they have for a long time, and then I'm like, I don't know, I never told you were right. I can't say there's a ploy behind it. It's not like me being like, ooh, look at how clever I am. Look, if you follow my trail of gummies on the ground, you will find the candy room of the plot candy room. But I find it rewarding when a major payoff happens every 2 years, and I can be like, here's all the stuff I did that now that you have this key middle piece of information, all of it interlocks pretty perfectly. And the reason I like doing that, and this is selfish, is because I like after those moments happen to have the players being like, yeah, I thought something was up about this when this, but I didn't know for certain.
Yeah.
And I like those moments because I find them to be very warm among the players. It's not a thing of me being like, "Oh, my machinations are so clever," because we know I'm a genius. That's fine. We don't need to prove it. But I don't think I'm a genius. For anyone who
True.
takes me too seriously, I do okay. A lot of it's dumb luck, but I like it when, for example, after the Machiavelli stuff happened. I think it was Eric pointed out that he started to get suspicious or I think it was Cody pointed out he started to get suspicious when Briar was kind of dismissive of Pito and was very
Yeah.
like, we'll talk later. And he was like, that's weird considering their relationship has been described as like super strong and like bro-ish. And then later Eric was like, yeah, I thought something was weird when he seemed really happy to have control of this place again. And it's validating for me because I can be like, cool, I'm putting out the vibes I want to put out. Which is nice to not feel like not feel like everything I'm doing is too below the surface is validating to find that out. But I like those moments because then the players also get to have these warm moments where they feel clever because they're like, oh, I was picking up on things.
Yeah.
The reverse loss phenomenon.
The reverse loss phenomenon?
Yeah, because Lost changed the ending because people kept
Oh, I
guessing it. But it's like, no, sometimes letting them be right is way better.
Yeah. Heckin', I am kind of the opinion, and the way I guess this wasn't exactly the question, but
Whatever.
I'm kind of in a perfect world where things go the way I want it to. I like it when the players figure things out, like right on the heels of the thing happening.
Just before, just after.
Yeah. It's kind of like with humor. When you tell a joke, like in stand-up, you want your audience to kind of realize your punchline right as you're telling it, so that they feel in on it. You don't want them to have to think about it afterwards. You don't want them to arrive at it long before you tell it. You want them to to figure out the punchline in the joke right as you tell it, because that's maximum humor. And I kind of feel that way with the plot twists and stuff, and that's why I lay a lot of seeds, and I tend to make them pretty ambiguous. Like with Briar, I have been trying to lay the foundation for this twist in a lot of different ways, a lot of fucking for years, and trying to be very subtle about it. And I've done a lot of that with Pito and how Pito talks about Briar compared to how Briar acts. And
so you're like, I'm trying to be subtle, and all I can remember is people suck. I agree.
But yeah, I ultimately I like it. It also proves to me, and this is selfish, when players have that moment of being like, oh yeah, when this happened, it made me think about this. It proves to me that people were paying attention, which validates the idea that we have a group that's interested in playing. Because with a GM like me, there is a minor worry on a constant basis that players will lose interest because things have either gone to low concept, see asterisk, low concept means what you probably think high concept means, low concept, or things got too political. Admittedly, the Cauldron got a bit of a clusterfuck politically, and I recognize that, and a couple players have talked to me about it, and I was like, no, I get it. We came here at a bad time where too much is going on top of too much. But it is a bit of a worry for me that players will sort of lose interest and think I'm just spinning my wheels. So when people are like, yeah, no, I caught on to that, and they seem really happy about having noticed, it reminds me that we all enjoy the game and that we're all paying attention. And I also like doing that stuff because I really like... I'm no Shyamalan, which in a good and bad way, but I like me a big recontextualizing twist. You know?
Yeah. I'm a fan.
Usually at the end of an arc. I usually try to do it at the end of an arc. However, and I think I've said this in back in chat 19 and stuff, I do have to constantly be aware that I have to change my tactics, because people do catch on to certain patterns, and I do have to constantly fight them and steer away from them. For example, if I tell a joke about how a thing the joke that if I have a big twist coming, I will at some point directly say exactly what it is as if it's a joke, and then it will happen later. I've had to stop doing that because it's not working, because now if I say it, people take it seriously, and I'm like, oh no, I don't want to.
Now we all look at you and raise our eyebrows and go, oh yeah?
There was one, I think, right before when we were getting into the cauldron, where I think we were just at the end of Honokuni or at the start of the cauldron, can't remember, where it was like, we're not going to space. Someone was like, I can't wait to go to space, and I was like, we're not going to space. And they're like, I can't wait to go to space and destroy the moon. I was like, what, you guys don't want a Gurren Lagann game? You don't want this to become a Gurren Lagann game? And I joked about it as if it was absurd. And then
6 months later,
I think that was the last time I made a "this is exactly what I'm doing" joke. But no, I've kind of lost the question. But I think that I like twists like that because seeing everybody connect the pieces retroactively, it has this like warm sense of group community to me, and I like those moments a lot. I also like making everybody panic briefly, and I to this day think that Velis going after everyone and luring everyone independently into different rooms and getting to do the same sort of surprise on everyone over and over and over, and then seeding it very casually. I was so worried that was going to go wrong. I think that was one of my strongest moments ever as a DM. I think that pulling that off, I was so worried I wouldn't be able to, but I'm so proud of the fact, no offense group, that I got to just kind of cascade trauma down the entire party and then let them go back through what each person had done and unwind it. Like, it was so fun.
I really had a lot of fun just sitting in the lunchroom with Lexi. Just be like, everyone's gone for a while, huh?
Yeah.
I still remember you saying, I'm gonna blast them with lightning.
Yeah!
and everyone, including me, taking it the wrong way and be like, okay, and then you'd be like, oh, no, the Crystal Queen, no. And I was like, oh, okay, oh my god. Oh.
If you had been like, no, blasting them with lightning, I'd be like, let's fucking go, boy.
Yeah.
I electrocuted the wrong ones.
I also appreciated that in those scenes, and again, this is just me being happy, because, I don't like thinking I'm just being kind of, like, masturbatory as a GM. The fact that people were picking up on Argo acting differently, despite the fact that I was keeping it mostly the same and whatnot, proved a lot to me where I was like, good, my characterizations are strong. I think this is a thing consistently I do well, because when I have a character act out of character, even subtly, people are noticing, and that's really hard to do in D&D, where at a lot of tables, NPCs are kind of what they need to be in the moment.
Especially without, like, faces.
Yeah. So I was very proud of the fact that people, like, were picking up on things being a little bit out of place and the tone being a little bit off. Because I'm proud of how observant everyone is, and I also have a moment of being like, that means I've established a strong character, and it's all improv.
It feels good.
So, yeah, it feels really good to do that.
Yeah. No, big fan of the epilogue. I've told you this many a time, but I'm like, I had so much fucking fun. I had so much fun. Thanks for traumatizing my character. I had a great time.
Yep, Velis is a bit traumatic when he's going wild.
Yeah, a little fucking bit, man.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I showed the vast majority of, like, scenes from that episode to Alejandro. I was like, bro, I don't even know how to explain this. I need you to just strap the fuck in. We're watching a lot of this episode, because
It must have been fun for you to go back and see the other, like, parts that led up to yours, too.
Oh, yeah.
My favorite thing...
I've gone back and I've listened to the episode multiple times just to, like, pick up on certain things. And also, I love watching my fellow players. Like, that is one of my favorite things in the world. Or, like, just listening to you guys DM. Like, I say it all the time. It's a treat. I love it. But continue. Sorry.
I also
love
love bringing other people in on my machinations, and like the best case in that like situation was the best. Okay, we're all here to play D&D moment was when it had happened to everybody, and Velis was going out to Quintus, and I got to be like, all right, who wants to fuck with Quintus? And fucking Spencer was like, me, I do, and like just being able to pass it on to him to be like, you get to be part of my deception. Here's the criteria, go. And it was brief, but it was very fun.
Good.
It was really fun to twist the logic of the table because no one suspects a player of doing that. Like no one, like Cody didn't come out of that being like, oh weird, why is Vogan talking to me? Whereas if I had done anything about it, if I had instructed him, if I'd been like, yeah, Vogan comes out to talk to you, or Argo comes out alone, there would have been some suspicion. But having the players willing to help manipulate the expectations of like the Ludo narrative of D&D to use players to do things like that, it's just so good.
Especially with changeling like type enemies, I guess would be the word.
Yeah.
But in general, there's some tricks that you cannot do without the cooperation of at least one player.
Yeah.
And those tricks are almost always the really hard to pull off, but if you do, you're like, yeah, tricks.
It's kind of an immediate example, but like, you can't have a doppelganger infiltrate the party without either the cooperation. Like, you can't have one infiltrate as a party member unless you like take that player aside before a game. You're like, hey, during the night tonight, your character's going to be captured and replaced with a doppelganger. Here's stuff I want you to do. I'd like you to play this. Because if you do it and you just start being the player, people are immediately like, well, how do I work around this? Obviously something's off. So a doppelganger as a concept can never pretend to be a player character around the player characters. So it is nice that in Nat 19 we have a table where I'm pretty confident that I can throw a thing at people and be like, hey, this is what I need you to do right now. Please have fun with it. And some more excitedly than others. Like, for example, I think Cody will chomp at the bit more than anybody else for those things. But it is very nice that we have a table where people will play that. And conversely, we have a table where if people see a story beat coming up and they figure it out too soon, but they realize how fun it would be to do the bad thing, the Machiavelli stuff being kind of an example, generally this table will be like, yeah, my character's still going to do it. I'm not going to try to outsmart the plot.
Yeah, exactly.
Because are we here to play D&D or not? Are we going to fuck the succubus or not? Like,
No.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just like, I love being Manny in that specific respect, because I kind of was putting it all together as Aaron in the sessions kind of are immediately around it, because so much of my game time as Manny is this stream of consciousness that hardly makes any actual sense, let alone in a way that he could cognitively understand any of that. And so I was just trying to stay in as close to Manny as possible, and I just wanted the trauma of thinking your best friend just stabbed themselves in the face. I was like, holy fuck.
I do regret that despite being started at different times and despite Velis being something I didn't know when it would come up, I do regret that in the same year we had two big person hiding in person's body plot twist reveals, because they both are in kind of the same theme, but it's also one of the kind of standard D&D like tropey reveals. But I do regret that we had two major reveals that were like, oh, this friend to the party was actually the big bad, despite the context being wildly different. I do wish I maybe didn't have, in the same way that I also regret that Diane's storyline and archetype is not entirely dissimilar from Orla Fannon's from Type Moon in terms of someone being forced into a position where they had to sort of be the bad guy for a while. But you can only do so many things, right? And like,
it's also just narrative tropes that you gravitate towards sometimes, because you with Orla you got to explore it a bit. You got to really kind of chew the fat with Diane on the other side of things.
I think the way they went about it, the exact context of it, and like, you know, in the case of one of them, they were actively trying to get out of it. They they forcefully allied themselves with the party in Orla's case, and she was like trying to avoid death by her arm. She was trying to get out of a literal like curse in her family. Whereas Diane was like steering into, no, I have to do this more because if I stop, I die. However, the fact that they're both highly intellectual women that take advantage of the situations around them and are fighting against oppressive but beneficial situations that they're in, there's a lot of overlap between the two of them, including how I had them carry themselves at times. And it's not a bad thing. I just do find myself sometimes being like, I do maybe wish that characterization didn't present itself so strongly in such a major way. But I guess we all have storytelling vices, and I take it more as I've acknowledged it. I'm going to keep it in mind moving forward. I don't think it ruins anything. It's not a problem. It's just a thing I wish I could have made more distinct. You know?
Yeah, no, I super understand. But no, I agree with Aaron in the fact that it's like there are certain storytelling tropes or like character types that you tend to gravitate towards, and I wasn't around for Type Moon, so I would never have been like, that's a little similar. But I, as someone who experienced a lot of the Diane storyline, loved it. Fucking loved it. And really gravitated towards it, especially during like the sort of Damocles stuff. That was really fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the way her story was told was very thoughtful in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think the main difference from where I stand is the conclusion to both of them are basically polar opposites. In that one took firm hold of their life and their autonomy and took it back from their situation, whereas the other had to escape by literally erasing everything they'd ever done and like removing themselves from themselves. So like the destination's wildly different. But yeah, it's just a thing, because like if you think about the two, you could find overlaps, even in to the fact that they both had green color coding for a lot of their stuff. But that's I like green. I don't know what to say. I like
Azure Crow.
I know, but I just really like her green glasses,
green.
and also, admittedly, with Orla, she was Irish, so she had a lot of green, and maybe that wasn't the most creative decision I ever made, but it was a decision I ever made.
Circling back, there's a thing I'd like to gush about slightly.
Yeah, do it.
It only works at a table game, but there's a DM on YouTube who talked about doing the doppelganger trick with a party member.
Mm-hmm.
But the trick was that none of the players were a doppelganger.
Oh, yes!
And he handed each of them different sized note cards. And he's like, I want you all to read this. And it will, like, if it says that you have been replaced with a doppelganger, it'll tell you what you know, what you can do, etc. And if not, then it'll have some other things. And every single one of them had the same message of, like, you are not the doppelganger. And then the longer one's like, you are not the doppelganger. I have written this longer message to make it appear as though you might be the doppelganger.
No, I've literally always wanted to do something like that, and like with people. It is so much better, though, when you give disproportionate things, because that's a ludonarrative trick. That's like tricking the minds of the players to affect the subconsciousness of the characters. And it's brilliant. And I love it anytime any GM does anything like that. It's so fun. Just be like, I'm going to do nothing. I'm going to let them do everything.
Yeah, you're like, well, I got a business card and they have a poster, so probably them. And they're like, no, that's too big. It couldn't be it. But that's the medium-sized card over there. That could be their stat block.
It's also, yeah, because you gotta worry about being like slightly too heavy-handed, because you could take it further and be like, hey, could everyone but Jeremy like leave right now? I just need to talk to him. And I think at that point, people might start being like, okay, you're maybe doing a thing. But yeah, no, stuff like that, so good. Oh.
Yeah, it's so funny.
So
Again, with the twist of that none of them were it, and then they just spend the next 2-3 sessions not trusting anyone. They're like, we move in pairs. We do not stay alone ever.
It's the kind of paranoia that, like, our Halloween games evoke in
Totally.
everybody.
Yeah. But yeah, that's my little side tangent.
I love it. I appreciate when y'all tangent. I never care how many questions we answer on this show. I'm here for the tangents and the thoughtful answers. That's really what I'm here for.
Yep.
I love a good tangent because that's how I do. So
Get you that tan.
get me that tangent. All right, gonna
Pew, 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 pew. For a win. For
Yeah.
a win. Okay, okay.
We've already asked that one.
Have you? Okay, okay, okay.
I don't have that number.
Have ya?
Did you know, while you find it, did you know that if
Mm.
that Amtrak, they sent me a thing being like, do you want to upgrade to business class for your trip down to Seattle? When you're upgrading, they have you bid. They're like, how much are you willing to pay to upgrade? And they'll give you a slider that goes and that tells you if your offer is fair, poor, or excellent.
What the fuck?
And then they're like, submit it, and we'll tell you if we accept it. And I did submit a thing because it's like I was like, I'll pay $20 to be in business class, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't really care if they reject it, but it's just so funny to me. They're like, how much would you pay to be upgraded to business class?
That's so weird. I have a question
Mm.
for Aaron.
Wow.
Don't make me yawn, I'll fight you.
Ah.
For Medium, if you were given the ability to cast Wish again, would you be selfish or selfless with your last one, considering everything that's happened?
He'd probably bring his dad back.
Yeah, that's valid.
Yeah, like he honestly, the biggest like kicking himself thing is that he didn't wish for both dads to come back because it's Wish and he could have done that, and he immediately knew afterwards that he could have just done that, but he also knew that the more specific you are with a wish, the more chances are it's not gonna come back to kick you. And so while he wouldn't necessarily, like if he went back in time, he wouldn't stop himself from just bringing Quinn's dad back. He definitely really wanted to get both back. So probably that. A very simple, petty wish, but something that he would want. I mean, I think good for him. He also doesn't really ever want to talk with just his mom about, hey, did you guys sell me to a vampire very briefly on their own? Because like they're really nice, and to just be like, hey, by the way, I know that like your entire emotional support network died while trying to earn money for all of us, but I'm also really mad that you guys were responsible for one of the greatest problems of my general formative life, and everything connected to it. Because if that didn't happen, you know, none of Miriam's ordeals with them would have happened. There's other like greater wishes that he could think about, and he probably would try and sit on it, but that would be the immediate one that would occur to him. Is that everything else is like, I don't know, trying to deal with the Crystal Queen, trying to figure out how to make the things that want him dead to not want him dead. Find some aspect of peace in his life.
Yeah. I think he deserves that. He definitely does. You mentioned Miriam not wanting to bring up the whole vampire shit to and like being sold and made to turn into a Hadisla and things like that. He doesn't want to bring that up just with his mom. Has that been on his mind since finding out that he's like, I would like to speak to them about this? Or
if it was both of them, he would definitely do it and be like, hey, the fuck was that? And like he even now he like consciously gets it and doesn't really hold it against them because he knows that they were in a similar situation, not literally, but because he doesn't know exactly where they came from, but they were in the Shadowfell. And they use Miriam as a bargaining chip to escape. And while that's kind of fucked up, the option was either remain there and almost certainly die a terrible, awful death, including all of their other kids and kids-to-be, or escape. And so while that's a terrible thing that he definitely is hurt by, he's also like, I'm happy you did it, I guess. because it means that his younger siblings also get to be in the Mithril Dive and not like fucking Barovia or like that awful Egypt one, where like it would have just been terrible for them. So that's a thing that, like, you know, emotionally it'd be good to work through, but it wouldn't be like a, hey, what the fuck, why did you do this? It would be a, hey, so we need to talk about the fact that I know this happened, because they might not even know what happened. And that's a thing of like, he doesn't want to if they don't know, if their memories like his are repressed about things like that, he doesn't really want anyone to cast greater restoration on like his mom, because if they get their memories back, they might tear themselves to pieces remembering what they did, let alone all the other things, like how much of the plane they remember.
Yeah.
Because that's buoyant.
Yeah. I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Logan, but when the Faignant was explaining stuff to Aviana, he mentioned that, like, Miriam's family doesn't remember that shit, right?
Yeah, Miriam's family, and they also weren't the only ones there.
Yeah, there's
the
many.
Faignant had like a whole collective of people who were like his remaining subjects, and they were some of them, and like that's where all the kids came from. And basically at the end of the project, he was like, you know what? I want to be alone forever. So he ejected everybody from what remains of his realm. And yeah, he removed their memories, and the Realm of Shadows also did a bit of a number on affecting them and taking their memories. But yeah, they don't remember living there. They have like, they would have a fuzzy section of their memory that if they try to remember it, they will subconsciously distract themselves from it. Like, part of the magic is that when they think about it, they don't. They will it's very fucking oh my god, what's the exact fucking immune to all threats, physical and magical.
Yeah.
I remembered his weakness. What's his weakness?
Yep.
He has no weakness. He's immune to all threats, physical and magical. Mimir, every time you talk about this, you start over. Oh, she must have cursed me so that every time I remember that I found out his weakness, I would forget. You know his weakness? Oh no, he's immune to all threats, physical and magical. it's very that. It would just be
that's
if they try
the vibe
to.
I was getting, but I was like, was I correct in thinking this? I think it's that his family doesn't, like, they had their memories like wiped.
Yeah,
or
they don't really know.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's there's a block, and they subconsciously choose not to engage with the block.
I have so many thoughts and fears on that, but I'll save it for like 3 years from now.
It's true.
But yeah, so part of really opening up that trauma would be to actively attempt to re-traumatize at least 3 family members. Well, that's not true. One of them is dead, so you'd have to bring one back, and then 3 family members.
I would also just say in a general, because Mary could probably assume this, they didn't really know what was going on.
Yeah, totally. Even if they did, like, even if they had full knowledge, he wouldn't hold it against them. The fact that they didn't and didn't really have a say, because what they say no to a dreadlord who's in like, well, I'm doing it anyway.
Yeah, it's not. They weren't really given a choice, and I will say it's not even that like his family opted him into it. He was just kind of plucked, and they were made aware that was the consequence. And it's not like they were particularly heroic or capable people in that situation. So they're like, well, we get to live a little bit better. As a consequence of this, because he treated the people that he took kids from, basically let them live in the castle. They were like pseudo nobles. He was like, yeah, no, totally, thanks for your contribution. And he was like, and if they had said no, he would have been like, well, I don't really need you. So
yeah, what are you gonna do about it?
Yeah, so it's not like they opted Miriam into it, and they really had no recourse to do anything about it.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure he has at least one older sibling. And the thing is, like, if they didn't take Miriam, they would have taken her, I believe.
Yeah. Poor kids.
Yeah.
Poor bunch of Shadowborn kids.
Man.
Stinky.
With their having souls.
Look at them having souls.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good thing that at least all these ones did, because throw us out of a dread plane after not having a soul, and you're just gonna You're like that one kid from Strahd.
Yep. Just live a vacant life, die and go nowhere, become nothing.
Yeah, you just leave. You're like, I'm free. Just turn to dust.
Oh God.
Oh, cool, I'm in the
thank
fugue
you.
plane. Oh no, I'm becoming the fugue plane.
Oh no.
Well, thank you very much for those thoughtful answers, Eowyn. Pew!
Meow.
Logan, each one for you.
I dodged it. I saw you shot your little kitty cannon at me just now. You pewed at me. I was ready for it. I dodged. I want you to know I'm still good. Nope, I'm ready now. I'm on guard.
Got him.
Those got me.
Yeah. Fucks his fast, boy.
Fucks his fan.
Okay.
I'm just gonna read this over real quick, see if it's treading similar ground.
Boop-a-doop.
Okay, yeah. Let's dig into this. There's a lot of Velis questions because people ask, like, will Logan answer them? I'm like, I don't know. Why don't you ask your questions and we'll find out in real time?
So you can't answer them if you don't ask them. That's for certain.
Shoot your goddamn shot. All right, so Velis had us all fooled with them having possessed Mary Mist's form from the start, especially given all the seemingly heartfelt moments they had with the party, Vogan specifically. Is there any way... Is there any way of judging how much of it was just an act put on by Velis, how much Mary Mist herself would have acted, or even just being genuine moments by Velis themselves? How much was real? Yeah, it's about what I thought.
So it says that they'll tell me if my bid is accepted hours before I get on the train. And that means I'm getting on the same train no matter what, but I guess I'm gonna find out if I'm gonna have comfy seats a little bit before.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm planning to take a train across Canada once I'm able to travel again. Trains are cool. Yeah. Thanks for the answer about the train. So I'm gonna roll again.
Oh yeah, no, that was fun.
Yeah.
That was fun to answer.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. That really made me think about something else. So I'm gonna roll again.
Okay.
Actually, for you, I might need a D12.
Oh.
There's one more for each y'all than I thought.
My
there was.
bardic inspiration has
Yeah.
been upgraded.
We've answered that. That's the one that we just... Listen here. Okay. It's such a polar opposite answer. I guess it's kind of in wake of Velas this happened, but Lamau. I mean, kind of ship question to another, I guess. I'm just laughing at the contrast of questions. With a certain guard boy expressing that he wants to travel with the highest standard, do you have any ideas of where you want to take his character, class, story, etc.?
Well, he's an NPC, so classes don't exist. He has an occupation. He may acquire skills, but I don't think in terms of classes. The players I find often also don't necessarily think in terms of classes unless it's really a solid in-universe thing. Like a warlock is definitely a warlock, but like put a ranger and a fighter beside each other, and I think most of the players in Somnus Domain are like, yeah, they're combatants.
Functionally the same, yeah.
I guess
but
build is a better question or a better phrasing than like class.
So, I mean, one misunderstanding there is that he intends to travel with the party. That is true and untrue. There are certain things Rory is capable of doing that the highest standard does not have time for, and he's going to probably be trying to do that. He's probably not going to go with the party immediately either, because if he's going to make himself capable enough to make any meaningful change in, like, to help Aviana and do what he said he's going to do, he needs to take time to build a skill set that allows him to do that. And it's not... he doesn't function in the same video game world that the party's levels do. He can't just be around adventure and acquire those skills by osmosis. He's going to have to go do something to get those skills. So he's probably going to disappear for a bit under the assumption that he is figuring out a way to be capable so he can do what he wants to do, which is find and Heckin' stomp on
Shows up
Nose's face.
wearing a Shield Guardian's armor. He's just like in the Hulkbuster.
I do have an idea of where I want to take him, and a large part of it I think I want to save for, like, the game. I do think it's
Going
interesting
back,
people
yeah.
are immediately like, Paladin? It's a pretty base assumption, but I will say Rory's not... I mean, I guess the presumption probably comes from that having a very strong heckin' conviction leads to oaths, and oaths can lead to being a paladin. But there are other avenues that he's going to go down. I'll tell you this much: he's not going to. They're not going to be like sorcerer or wizard related.
Oh, shucks.
But he's got a bit of an off-screen training arc ahead of him, I think, and also he may use his connections to do more research that the players won't necessarily have time to do, / the party won't have the narrative freedom to do because of how D&D works with the adventuring, and you can't hole yourself up sending letters back and forth with a confidant for 2 months in D&D and have it work out. So he's got some stuff to do, but he's probably not going to immediately travel with the party.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Own little adventure.
Yeah, because, like, not even thinking in terms of levels, just thinking in terms of, like, skill sets and, like, experience, like, life experience and, like, travel experience. I'm like, I don't think he's ready for that.
Yep. That's the fun thing about NPCs, is that they can, quote-unquote, level up by narrative. And it's, as long as it's not absurd and they're not suddenly level 20, it's like, yeah, if an NPC needs to catch up with the party, depending on who they are, you can sort of hand wave that, yeah, they went and they trained for a month and now they've gotten really good at this one thing that's going to make them capable. Depending on what it is. I mean, if a wizard walks off screen, comes back a month later, and he's like, I cast level 8 spells now, that's maybe not as believable. But, if someone who's capable but has never applied themselves to, like, learning to adventure or to combat, or they're like, I do what I need to do as a guard, but I've never tried to refine my skill set as a combatant necessarily, there's kind of a level of disbelief. There's like a Frieza element of, like, I would have been strong enough to kill them, but I've never trained a day in my life, so I'm gonna go off and do 2 arm curls and come back and awaken Rainbow Frieza. Like, fucking, it's, NPCs are good for that.
I'm only laughing. I understood and took in everything you just said, but my little brain was like, it pictured Frieza's voice coming out of Rory's face, and it just...
Foolish monkeys.
I can't. I can't.
Oh, that's a weird...
That's a weird thought.
I need to come back being Frieza.
No.
I mean, people already said he was racist.
That's true.
He's gonna come back being more racist, but now against humans.
I don't... We'll unpack that. What?
Right? Now, here's the thing. People do go paladin, and people are like, oaths lead to paladin, which is like a reasonable way to be like, yeah, no, magical paladin power up, that's a good way to, like, level them up. However, have you considered the other easiest way to have an NPC suddenly be super powerful, which is Warlock, which can happen to anyone at any time if the GM needs it to.
Fucking...
Warlock for fucking Rory!
His patron's Avi's mom.
Patron's Fierna.
Fierna! Oh my god! Oh, holy shit. Either of those options would be like, whoo, buddy, we gotta talk.
Patron's
all right,
Feniant.
First task in your contract, kill Miriam.
Could you imagine if, like, the Feniant popped up, offered him fucking a contract, and he had no real idea who the Feniant was, and the Feniant was like, yeah, so this Maudium guy, he sort of broke our thing. Tell you what, I'll give you power, but at some point you have to do one thing I say, and you are compelled to do it. And Rory's like, that makes sense. And then he gets to Mary, he's like, kill Miriam. Kill Miriam now.
Oh,
sorry. Kill Maudium.
He's like, who's this Mariam guy? He says Mariam and it's like does not click. at
I'll
all.
let you know as soon as I find him there, eh? The
Yeah.
press who's on the case.
Loophole. This is Miriam.
I mean, you know.
The Fanian clicks a handheld, like, detonator button nonchalantly. Rory explodes.
Oh, I have to kill you twice. I already kind of wanted to. No, man. Okay.
Favored soul, Rory.
Into it. Into it. But by whom?
Well, there's a full list of like 30 lesser gods coming out with the setting guide. There's lots of options.
You
Maybe
love
Agris.
options. Ooh, what did they do?
Favorite soul
Agris
of
do?
Fosh.
That's fine.
You know what? I'm about it. Let's go.
Heckin', what does Agris do?
Yeah, tell the people at home.
Tell them about the Twinkies.
But also me.
Agris, the Duke of Chains, also known as the. I pulled up my setting guide notes. The Agris, Duke of Chains, alignment, true neutral, domains, justice, wrath, subservient to Haros, portfolio, unbiased justice, and just intervention. Heckin' associations, the liberating chain, the principled court. The Silver Knight and Bound Judge. Agris is a radiant celestial being who watches over those who fight in the name of justice, both ensuring their success and that they don't fall into the trap of personal judgment. They are commonly depicted as the most common... more old-time radio as I go. They're basically like the god of fucking just intervention and like knights and such. They're very like... They're good, but to the extent of like celestial justice. They don't believe in taking action against evils if those evils are self-imposed or if those evils are necessarily lawful. They believe in following the letter of the law, which is very Rory.
Yep.
But they do believe in intervening in situations that fall into their portfolio with all due smiteness as is required, all smititude. They're very they're not dissimilar to Helm.
Gotcha.
Yeah. They're heckin', I'm gonna show it to you just because it's fun. Their symbol. Just because I have it
I'm
here.
just like, these are my stairs. No one goes up these stairs.
Mistral, stay down. Mistral.
Straight down.
Real fuck, I'll throw it in Wits and Crits scheduling. This is Agris's emblem, and again, it's one of my favorite emblems that we got made for the
Oh,
gods.
yeah, I've seen that one. I recognize that shit.
Yeah, the
I
Duke
love
of
that.
Chains, Agris. Yeah, there's like, how many is it? 3 by 5. Yeah, it's like 30 lesser gods are coming out in the setting guide, which are things I hope to expand on more in the interim games.
I'm pumped for that shit. I'm excited for the setting guide because I'm a little lore junkie.
Fosh is one of them.
Yeah.
known by
Listen.
his name Kai Foshun.
Old Fosharoni.
Yeah.
I love him.
Yeah.
Fosh Boyardee.
Fosh Boyardee.
Oh. Well, thank you, my boy.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Emerald, up y'all, it's for both of yous.
Is it the
for
last
the-
dual
Oh,
question?
I'm one of those.
Waiting for the Fogan Paladin of Fosh arc.
Yep.
Same.
Favored soul of Fosh. Foshered soul.
For both of you, my beautiful, wonderful boys. All right, let's say the thing that's making you laugh first, though.
Fished soul.
Fishing soul. Now you're just fishing for laughs. Anyway.
Laugh.
Oh, laugh, please.
Please clap.
Please clap. I can count how many times I've said, or can't count rather, how many times I've said that on stream. I'm like, please chat, just support me here. Please tell me
clap.
I'm funny. Please clap. Please tell
Please
me I'm
laugh.
funny. I know that was cringe. Just tell me I'm funny. Tell me I'm cute. Pat me on the head and leave me alone. Anyway, my boys.
As GMs, how do you feel about the idea of keeping aspects of the game hidden, such as dice rolls, enemy health, to even certain player roles, such as insight checks or perception, using the tower for such things, versus keeping all of these things out in the open? How do you think either might affect player experience?
I just went on a whole long answer, so if you want to field this one first, you go ahead.
I've recently been changing in my general opinion of it. I like control over whether or not they see it. Whether or not I use it is entirely separate. Because I do think it's important sometimes to be able to have the agency as a storyteller to choose something more interesting than maybe what the dice might give you. Because sometimes, player or GM, the dice are going to fuck you. And sometimes letting that happen, just running it straight, is fun and good, and you should do that. And sometimes it ruins, say, like a really, really, really juicy boss fight. Let's say you have the BBEG shows up, and somehow, like, I don't know, you licked Will Wheaton or something, and you just can't roll higher than a 3. You're just missing constantly. It's not happening. And there's lots of other tools you can do. You can suddenly be like, and oh, by the way, I didn't tell you this, mythic actions, and they can have a mythic revival and you can try a little bit longer. But one thing that can happen is eventually it can turn something that should be a fun dramatic reveal into a joke. And if you don't want that, then having agency to be like, maybe that one hit, you know? That said, don't really do that. Never had a reason to. It's never really like ended up that way. Law of averages means that it's just gonna usually work out. Bounded accuracy is quite the biznatch in 5th edition, and so more and more I've been letting go of that. I don't really care all that much. I do think running it straight is pretty straightforward, and holding that L can be funny. That was The Last Princes, without obviously getting into spoilers, but I had the dickens of a time hitting anybody for the whole game, and it was like 4 hours. And I was like, oh, I don't know. And no one was complaining. No one seemed like they weren't having fun. And so as long as the table is healthy, I could honestly care less about whether or not they see them. That said, secrecy leads to a lot of things. Like, I used to do this a lot more back when we were starting, and I still like it, is pick a secret your character has in character creation for a player on that side. Like, have something you don't tell people. It can be as serious as, I killed a person and am wanted for it, or I am not guilty of a similar accused crime, versus I'm terrified of spiders, or something like really mundane and kind of straightforward, because it leads people into a much more tangible facsimile of a functioning living world where your character gets just a little bit more depth. So when it comes to GMing, I love secrets. I love being able to be secretive when I want to, and I use it quite prodigiously. But I don't think that's the right word. But I if it suddenly became impossible to do, I think that sometimes it would be worse, but overall it wouldn't change that much. Generally, rolling for the table, when you show all your rolls, that's where you're like, hey, this is here's Derek the Skull. I am not saving you from this fight, and I'm going to roll openly because I want you to know 100% that this is what's happening, and I don't want you to even have a tangible fragment of doubt. I want you to know that this is how it's going to go down, and if I roll 3 20s in a row, well, we all saw it. There's no going back. And that's the big thing, is that if you show someone and you roll 3 20s in a row, there's no going back. And so as long as you're prepared to handle that, rock on, do you.
So is the question specifically pertaining to hiding roles that would otherwise be shown?
Here, I can repeat the question.
Please do.
You tell him, Ryuji. Go off.
Dog,
As GMs, How do you feel about the idea of keeping aspects of the game hidden, such as dice rolls, enemy health, to even certain player roles, such as
Enemy health.
insight checks or perception, using the dice tower for such things, versus keeping all of these things out in the open? How do you think one might affect player experience?
So I have sort of complicated, a sort of complicated answer that has to do with some things I've thought about doing and not
Yeah.
had the foresight to do, and then some things I just. Every table plays different. If you're telling your players enemy health, go play a video game. And obviously I say that with love. If that's how your table likes to play, then whatever, fucking rock on. But we have an infamous moment. I can't remember when it was. We were playing something. I think it was maybe the Dungeon Crawl Classics game or something. And I remember early Spencer, asking me how many hit points an enemy had, and I was like, I don't know, fam. How many do they have? Like, fucking figure it out. I don't think that your players ever should be privy, unless they've done something to find out the hit points of a creature. And even if they know its condition, I think that being like wounded, heavily wounded, not looking good, on its last legs are like as close as you should ever get to telling them.
There used to
Obviously,
be official
I
ones
think,
for that, right?
What?
There used to be official, like I think it's 3.5 is like bloodied was like half health.
Yeah, those terms are still kind of used a little bit. But yeah, as far as obviously, I suppose any dice roll that just in the base game you would not show your players, like attack rolls, saving throws, monster stuff. I don't see a reason to make those public unless you're being dramatic, unless you're trying to prove something.
Yeah.
But
Under
you
no
also-
circumstances should a player, for instance, be opening the like monster manual or DMG
Yeah.
to look up what you're using, because if their character isn't someone who should know those things, then why should the player?
I think also, and I've dealt with this a little bit, and I tend to bring it up when it happens. If you, for example, tell players in one instance that you're going to roll the death saves of an important NPC in public, or you're going to show them rolls, or if you're like, I will confirm crits when they happen, players can often then start feeling entitled to confirmation, and they're not. I think if your players don't trust your GM to have the health of the game's best interest in mind, that's its own problem. And different tables will be like, yeah, but I like playing this way, and that's fine. If you're at a table where that kind of trust isn't possible and you're still having fun, that's you. But in my experience is that your players should be able to trust your GM is not trying to fuck you. Or if they're trying to fuck you, it's in a nice way. They're trying to fuck you good.
A
Not fuck you bad.
kind fuck, if you
Yeah.
will.
However, moving kind of out of the realm of should everything be open or should it not be, I think showing the players roles that you might hide, like if you're rolling off of a D100 table to determine something happening, I think it can be fun. An example of that being at the end of Vestige when we're doing the reincarnation tables. I think showing the roles was more fun for everybody, especially given that there was no great consequence to anybody knowing. As opposed to it maybe, if they'd both been cool things I liked, people might have been like, well, you just picked those then. So it's kind of fun to be like, no, the part of the fun of this is it was quirky and random, and I want to show you it is. But on the other side, I think that taking player roles that should be visible and making them invisible, being like, roll those into the tower, I'll tell you what you got, or I won't tell you what you got. Or if you like ask for a 1d100 roll for something and you're like, roll into the tower, I don't want you to see what you got. Those are cool. I like when a GM does that, because sometimes knowing the result of like an environmental roll can
Influence you.
it can have an effect on the Ludo narrative, because if you play by the general assumption that on a D100 table, lower is usually better. If you know your GM builds that way and you know that that's usually the case, and you know that like the closer to 100 you are, probably the more unfortunate the result, and the closer to 1 you are, the better the result, then if your GM's like, yeah, no, I'm not going to tell you what it's for, roll D100, and you roll like a 2, you're going to sit there being like, I am expecting something beneficial. No, go away, Olympic Village. Whereas, if you... Today's not that, is it?
Mal?
Olympic Village. Oh, it's tomorrow. Good. If
I was gonna say,
you,
this can be our last question. If
I was
you
like,
gotta go.
am I supposed to be at the dentist?
Oh,
But if the player knows they're rolling for something but don't know the actual roll, it can be fun. But I do think there's cases where, like, for example, it might seem dramatic in your mind to be like, you're going for a final attack on the big bad. Roll your attack roll into the tower and I'll tell you what you got. There's no point to that.
Mm-hmm.
That's stealing the fun of an expected part of the game for absolutely no reason other than to create a moment of uncertainty that is kind of just unfair. Like, there's no real reason or point. So, like, I don't like doing stuff like that. I think the only time you want to tell people to roll stuff into the tower is when the mystery adds to something or the mystery helps with the, like, ludonarrative experience of connecting to the mechanics. And that's almost never in combat. It's almost always environmental stuff and whatnot. Or it's stuff that has a long-standing effect on the future. When you're like, roll this, something may come of it in the next hour. You maybe want it to be secret because you don't want it in their thoughts in like a particular way, so you might do that. But I guess what I'm mostly saying is, like, you only hide things you expect to see if hiding it itself doesn't influence the thoughts of players.
Is in service of play.
It's in service of the excitement of play, yeah.
They directly mention things like perception checks, and I think that there are a few situations where I would do that. Because generally, if I don't want them to know, and they haven't said they're looking, passive perception is what it's for.
Perception.
No one uses passive perception. Use passive perception, everybody.
I
do. It's great. Yeah, it's true.
It's great. It's so good.
We had such a struggle really getting stealth down in 5e because it's very straightforward until you realize that it's not, and, like, people get super confused on things like surprise and other stuff, and so really kind of drilling those down is helpful.
Yep.
But if they say they look, roll perception. And while you can hide them, I think sometimes if you have players who maybe tend to, if they roll like a 2, they're like, okay, well, I don't see it, so I shine my torch up at the roof now. Like, they start looking around a little bit more. You can control some meta gameplay if you want to make sure that people behave as their character would. There are things like hiding stealth checks that I understand, and also I'm middling on that, because if you roll a 1 on stealth and you are proficient in stealth, chances are you fucked up. Like,
that one's hard. Because there's a lot of cases where I could see it being fun to ask the stealth check to be hidden.
Where, like, you believe you're hidden, and it's especially those middling rolls where it is. And I think, I don't know, if it's like, you could probably start being like, roll it into the tower, and then if they get like a 2 or a 3, you're like, okay, you know you did it. But, like, if you're a level like 9 rogue just before you get reliable talent and, like, you're millimeters away from being able to do it amazingly forever, and you roll a 2, like, you're gonna be like, you feel like you've done much better previously in your career. But again, if controlling the player perception is sometimes it's very, very useful to be like, you don't know how well you're hidden, because that can add a lot of tension. You know, when you think of, like, the hobbits hiding in that little, like, gully while the ring wraith is peering around looking for them, if you didn't know what you rolled and you know that thing is like end game threat level and it's looking around for you, you'd be like, oh, I hope it was good. And
Pray.
again, it's in service of building, like, tension, which is great.
Here's a thing. That's kind of what I was talking about when I was like, there's a thing that I haven't done, but I've wanted to. There's a thing I've wanted to do, which I just do not have the foresight to ever sit down and do, which is I've wanted to, like, get a document and get each of the players in a certain game and be like, I want you to, into the tower, like, just so you can't see it, I want you to roll me 10 d20s, and I'm going to write them down in order, and anytime I need a secret roll, I'm going to pull the next d20. And not even ask you to roll anything. I'm not going to ask you in the moment to, like, roll a thing if I want to hide it. If it matters, I'm going to pull one of these and always just use the next one down the list. And when I run out of them, I'm going to ask you to roll 10 more. That system implies that you trust your GM not to be like, oh no, there was a stupid situation that blew through the good ones, man. It implies that you have to trust that they're using them entirely as they come and not trying to manipulate them to get what they want. But I thought about doing it so that I could have a handful of rolls on hand, so that if anyone's ever, like, I don't know, if something happens and I'm like, you wouldn't know this is happening, but it requires a roll from you, I can just pluck it out and be like, this, you got this. And if it had advantage, I'll be like, I'll use the next 2 and pick the higher one. But there's some problems with it too that made it so I haven't done it. For example, one problem that arises is that the GM is also subject to meta-narrative influence, in that if I know what the next roll result is going to be for all the players, it might affect when I choose to use it, because I also want the players to fail or succeed sometimes, usually succeed. So like if I see an encounter's gonna happen and I'm like, oh, someone's gonna shoot you with a fireball, and I know that you're at 4 hit points, and I was gonna use this for a secret dexterity save, which is an absurd thing to say, but let's say I'm doing it. And I look at it and I'm like, oh no, you will fail, but I don't want you to die. I might be like, oh, you actually see it, and have you roll it normally. And at the point of picking and choosing when you use them, what
becomes
was the point?
Useless, yeah.
So like there's issues, and like there's ways around it, and I mean DM fiat exists. It's impossible to get away from it entirely. But there's a bunch of things that have stopped me from doing it, but I've thought about implementing that at some point and seeing how it goes. And I might do that in like an interim game, just to be like, I'd like to play around with this and see how it goes. And then probably abandon it if it doesn't go well. But that's like one solution I've thought might be good for the problem of everybody roll perception, and everyone gets below a 10, and you're like, don't worry about it.
Never mind.
Forget about it.
Instead, you could just, pluck them from what they rolled and be like, cool, those are the results. Burned.
I think it would be interesting to try out. It's one of those things where I'm like, it sounds interesting in concept, and I would be willing to try it and like see how it feels, Because I think it's one of those where it's like, you don't really, it's a cool concept, but you don't know how it's gonna like go unless you really play around with it.
There are times when it would be appropriate to use and times when it wouldn't. And I think the major issue is figuring out when it's fair to use and when it's not. That is the real challenge of that idea. And even a really good GM might have difficulty figuring out when it's appropriate and when it's not. And you don't want to use those roles to enable a GM to build bad habits, to be like, no guys, I just used the bank rolls, and this thing that is definitely exactly what I wanted to happen has now happened. Because you never want to feel like the GM is pretending to manipulate the situation. If the GM's going to do that, they should just do what they want. And if they think it'll be fun for the party, take away the artifice of random chance. Just do it and have the understanding that the GM thought this would be fun, and they're on your side in the theme of having fun. A GM should never have to quantify why they chose to do something. If they have to argue semantics about whether or not they should behave a certain way at a table, it means that the table needs to have a talk about their understanding of what the GM's job is. Because at different tables, the GM should take, at like an adventure league table, you wouldn't do this. Because those are like expected to be straightforward and by the books. But at a group of friends are like, yeah, I trust my GM. Then the GM's like, cool. Well, then we're gonna hand wave some stuff sometimes because I think it'll make everything way more fun. And I mean, that's how we play, in my opinion. I never feel, when Aaron's GMing, I never feel like anything is unfair. And, I never feel like our table ever has the detested GM, I'm rambling, I'm sorry. The detested GM habit, which is, and this is one of my least favorite things any GM does, and if you're a GM out there and you catch yourself doing it, please stop, of wanting players to fail, so you keep having them roll the same roll until they fail. Like, they're trapped.
Roll me stealth.
by-
Walk 10 feet. Okay, roll me stealth again.
Yeah, that's a great example of being like, they want to get through an orc camp. They roll stealth. They get like a 19 plus their modifier. They go. And then you're like, oh, but now you bump into a new set of them. And so they're different. So I'd like you to roll it again. Or, oh, you walked into a room. Oh, it's a little bit better lit. So I'd like the circumstance. I'd like you to roll it again. Oh, you're trying to open the door. Please roll me stealth for rolling the door. And it's like, at that point, you are trying to death by 1,000 cuts their chances of succeeding because you want them to fail. Just pick an early result, roll with it. If you're that intent on triggering an event, it will feel better if you just do it. If you have to lie about the passive perception of something at the table, that feels better than having your players roll until they fail. It's better that they believe something that they don't know caused it than to realize that you are just trying to sabotage them.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's my rant on that. I hate death by 1,000 cuts rolls. It's one of the worst GM habits I've seen. Just
You want your players to succeed a thing, make them all roll it. You want them to fail a thing, make them all roll it. Because one of them is going to generally do one or the other.
There's so many ways you can get the result you want without doing that. And one of the ways is if you're so certain that it should happen, just
And it
do
happens.
Just
You are super god. You can just make it happen.
And if just doing it makes your table angry, I guarantee you that death by 1,000 cutsing them would also make them angry. So,
speaking
same
of
result.
things that makes players angry, I have a question about something. Not in something either of you have done, to clarify.
Oh, I made you angry.
Oh, you made me so angry. I'm very, very angry
sorry.
at you, Mr. Laidlaw. I've had this at a previous table where a GM wanted to roll death saves for the players. As a player, I did not like that. I felt it, for me, it took away a little bit of agency, but also I'm like, I don't know if, like, maybe we had maybe something happened and maybe you've just decided you want to kill my character. What is y'all's opinion on rolling important saves, like death saves and stuff, for a player and just telling them whether they succeed or
I don't think
fail?
there's ever a case where you should do that.
D&D is a game about rolling dice and having fun, and taking away rolling dice from players is always going to be a little bit less fun, especially things like death saves, where, again, the more you do things behind the screen, the more people don't know what it is. And while not across the board, and depending on your relationship with your table and players, it's going to change on how and when it happens, there are going to be moments that people aren't going to be entirely sure if this is what's true or what you as the DM have decided to do. And that's what's the old adage of, like, every DM fudges except no DM does.
Except no, they don't.
Yeah, because no one fudges, because of course you don't fudge. Why would you ever tell your players you fudge? Because if you do, then they never trust anything you roll. And
Agreed.
so if you're rolling behind the screen, they're going to be unsure. And if it's about something very critical, even if they succeed, if they live, and we've had, like, tinges of this happen in Nat 19 where people are like, oh yeah, like, really? Is that the case? And it's like, okay, trust it or don't. Like, you need to make a choice.
I hate it when people say that. Even if you genuinely think your GM's lying, if you want to have fun at the table, that's such a bad energy to bring. Like, do it afterwards, you know?
And because the truth is, your GM, generally speaking, should want you to succeed, but sometimes you're gonna get got, and so it's much better to put that random chance in the player's hand and let them see it, because there's also fun in the tension of rolling a d20 roll. Even recently, when you're like, if I miss this d20 roll, I die if I roll a 1, and then I made my ruling. I'm like, wait, no, sorry, that damage happens at its turn in order for consistency's sake, because that's how I'd been running it. And then he rolled a 1, and, like, that was a really fun charged moment, because but if I just rolled it behind the screen and then showed everyone, it still would have been like, oh god, but it would have been a lot less meaningful.
In that case, especially after making the joke, it would have felt like you were trying to steer into like the irony or be entertaining. Like,
yeah, and like
the more
there's
you
no way
take
to
away-
avoid it.
The more you take away and take behind the screen to kind of bounce into the same question, the more you hide, I think the more players will feel like you just want control. So like I think it's important to be like, you have control of this, I have control of this, and sometimes when I think it's in service to the tone, I will take a thing, and sometimes when it's in service to the tone, I will show you a thing you shouldn't be shown. However, we should not assume those things will happen a lot. And as for the death saving throw stuff, even though we now in Nat 19 have the dying rule where you can like squirm around and do your stuff in my games at least, and so dying isn't a total loss of control. Having death saves taken away from you in a normal game is having the only thing that you get to do on your turn taken away from you.
Yeah.
So no, never.
Yeah, I can't think of a situation I would ever want to do that in.
Yeah, I'd only ever had it happen at like one table before, so I'm like, I'm very curious from like a GM standpoint. Like, I was very curious what you guys like thought about that, because we definitely don't do that, and y'all try to give us agency when we're down, and I think as a player, super appreciated.
People have a habit of wanting to try different stuff and do different things. There's a lot of creative minds in D&D, and so sometimes it seems like a good idea in the moment when, if you look at it objectively, it isn't. But another thing is, D&D is as a project, especially for me, but I push this on everyone I possibly can, is an exercise in letting go of the control that we also build up. A big thing about a lot of DMs is that they embrace the chaos that is random chance. We don't roll dice because we want consistent results. We roll dice because we don't know what's going to happen. You know, there's a joke about like when you roll to fuck, I make the joke all the time, like there's always a 5% chance that you are the worst lay you've ever been in your life. And that's just because memes. But that's how dice work. You need to embrace dice and be like, yeah, sometimes chaos happens. Sometimes things that we're not exactly ready for or comfortable with are going to jump in. And obviously we fight to make sure tables are safe and good for everyone. But as a dungeon master, building a table where you trust your players to do the things they do and they can trust you to do the exact same thing means, you know, giving away some of that control that especially some players and DMs really, really, really value. I don't know, it's fun. It's scary, but it's fun.
Yeah.
On the tangential topic of like a lot of creativity in the space, general note for people that like want to invent subsystems and use them at their table, or like this idea would be fun. Remember to always go down a checklist of, is it going to slow down your table? Who's it fun for?
Does it already exist?
And is it making it more fun, or is it just different? Not the difference bad, but if you like are satisfied after those answers, cool. Remember though that like sometimes things being more involved isn't more fun. Sometimes you want things to just get out of the way. Sometimes you don't want to have to reference a manual all the time.
I mean, it's the table gang. It's those dudes who like want to make tables on tables on tables on tables, and they're like, especially this comes from a lot of war gamers, people who play like Warhammer and stuff, where there's tons and tons of tables you go through, and it's a lot more about a battle simulation. And if you're running a combat tabletop, then you know maybe that'll be a little bit better for your table. But generally speaking, as far as 5th edition goes, that's just gonna slow everything down.
Yep.
Where you're like, okay, we need to roll a D100, and that scales us into a D1000 table, which tells us the general result. It's like, we could have just done the D100, if even. You know, there's not a ton of table spells, much to my chagrin sometimes, because I love them for Manny, because it is a bit of a biznatch to constantly be rolling on tables and subtables.
Yep. Mechanics should be in service to something and should generally keep things moving along.
Yep.
Agreed.
I think that's where we stand on that.
Yeah.
Let players roll their death saves. They're their death saves.
It just kind of came to mind when we were talking about it. I was like, yeah,
Meh.
I want your opinion. Meh.
Besides,
Well-
if you are the malicious DM in that situation, even then, you could also be doing better bad DM. Fake bad DM I've invented for this. If you're trying to roll their death save so you can choose to kill them if you want, just kill your players. Don't be a coward. Attack them while they're down.
Yep. No, I
Fucking
agree.
do it.
Don't try to trick your way into doing bad things. I think is don't pretend the dice are doing the thing you want to do. is
Yeah.
really what it is.
Sorry, guys, no control over it.
Oh, crazy.
That's weird. It's weird how this happens so often, and you never seem to have control over the specifically killing fucking Bob every time he makes a new character. Weird.
Oh no, Bob stepped on the pressure plate of 7 undead Tarasques.
Yeah.
Why so many? It's like, I don't know, man. It could have been 8. You got lucky.
As I kind of muttered earlier, you earn your fudges. Like, yes, you can DMs fudge things, but you need to act in good faith so much that when you fudge things, it's not obvious. Like, you need to be straightforward most of the time. And then every once in a while, as a treat, because you've earned it, you get to be like, no, that failed or succeeded.
Yeah.
Weed.
As a treat.
As a tweet.
As a
As
little
a
tweet.
little Oreo
A
cookie.
little snack.
Little
Well-
Baby Bell cheese.
Both of y'all are total snacks, but that is all the time we have for today.
Oh, man.
Boy, is it. Fucking, I don't know how long we usually run, but man, I think this ran quite long.
The episodes have started going long because we're all tangenty boys, but I don't, unless like we're all on crazy time crunches and you tell me beforehand, it's how it do. I like the loose nature of the show, and that's the goal. But
Yep.
I appreciate both of y'all so very much. We got through like a fraction of the questions, which means I get to save them for next time. But I really appreciate how thoughtful you both were with your questions. So why don't you guys go ahead and promote yourselves and tell the teenies at home or in the bush? Maybe they're just hanging out, on a mountain somewhere. I don't know, but where can they find you? Let's start with Logan.
Okay, my new job title is Senior CEO. I've been promoted, and you can find me in my house. You can find me on Twitter at the Azure Crow. You can find me on DriveThruRPG. If you look up Logan Laidlaw, you can find most of my stuff through our website, nat19show.com. If you're watching this, by the way, we just added a bunch of prints and mouse pads, so go check those out, would you? You can find me on YouTube on the Let Them Play Games /Nat19 channel, and also the Project Mouthwash channel, which also has technically the URL, the Azure Crow, because they didn't let me change that when I changed it to a team channel. Where else can you find me? You can find me in the resonance of a child's laughter. You can find me in the smile of a young man who's just bought his first car. You can find me in the gleam of a parent proud to send their child off to college. And get them out of the fucking house.
Get them the fuck out of there.
And if you
Well, good
stare
to know.
straight into the sun, I'll be there too. Just
You're
wait.
the smiling baby from Teletubbies.
I'm the smiling baby from Teletubby.
Oh. Well, thank you, smiling baby from Teletubbies. I appreciate you. You're
Where
a
can we
wonderful
find you,
GM. Where can we find you, Eowyn?
Hi. Most of those other things, you can find me here. If I'm not here, you can find me over on Twitter at the Aaron Parnell or at Frozen Frost VT. You can also find me on YouTube on my personal account, which is Frozen Frost VT. And you can find me on twitch.tv/FrozenFrost, where I go meow and I shoot things, generally speaking. And there's basically it.
That's about it.
Heck yeah, well,
He's one of the
pre-show.
Teletubbies.
Oh
I
my
am.
god.
I'm Poe because they're the best one, and
I was
also
gonna say.
I'm pretty sure a girl. But don't worry about that. I'm just that fab.
You are fab. It's true. Heckin', I suppose if you want more of me, you can find me on Twitter at HeyBaleVoice, as well as on Instagram at HeyBaleVoice. I don't post anything. I shit post in my stories mostly. So I guess go there for that. But mostly you can find me on Twitter at Scylla Aria, or on Twitch at Scylla Aria, that's SYLLAARIA, where I do the VTubing thing and I stream video games, sometimes at ungodly hours because I'm an insomniac and that's just how I do. But if you want more Net19, because why wouldn't you? You can tune in Monday through Wednesday, or now Monday through Thursday, for gaming streams. Thursdays we alternate with Princes of the Apocalypse, themed by Aaron, as well as Laidback Laidlaw, which is Logan's new gaming stream, and we've been playing Baldur's Gate, and it's been a good time.
Yay.
Been playing that with the Yay.
I'm laid back. I'm not gonna be excited. I'm gonna yay.
True. You right. Wednesdays we alternate with Chaos Crew with Braden Alexander and I, and obviously this show. What's up? You're watching this show. Surprise. If you're this far in and you didn't know what you were watching, thanks for the views, I guess. And now we are streaming Devils Might Surrender on Thursday or Saturdays. I was reading Saturdays, but my heart said Thursdays. It's residual, man. So Devils Might Surrender is on Saturdays. And if you're interested in merchandise or you want to know more about our team, you can visit us at nat19show.com. That's nat19show.com. So thank you guys so much for listening. We appreciate you very much, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.